Hello viewers, welcome to my channel IITJ Olympiads and AP Physics with Ambarish. Today I have brought to you the proof of oblique Doppler effect formula. This formula is given in almost all IITJ level textbooks or study packages of all the coaching materials. However, in many places this formula has been stated without proof, and many times good students, they are very much interested in knowing the proof of this formula. So today I am going to prove this formula. If you want, you can try proving it yourself, otherwise you can have a look at my proof directly. So formula, I am sure all of you know. This is the formula. Suppose there is a source S is moving with some velocity Vs, and let us say there is some observer O, and it is moving with some velocity Vo, and let's say the line joining the source and the observer, it makes an angle theta with Vs and it makes an angle phi with Vo. Then the apparent frequency or the observed frequency by the observer is nothing but the emitted frequency. Nu is the emitted frequency into C minus V naught cos theta, V naught cos phi divided by C minus Vs cos theta. Here there can be a plus or minus depending on whether the bodies are approaching each other or they are moving away from each other. So I'm sure you know how to adjust the sign plus or minus in the numerator and denominator. So I've taken this particular situation and I'm going to prove this formula for this situation. Okay. So in this formula, Vo is the velocity of the observer, Vs is the velocity of the source, and C is the velocity of sound, and nu is the frequency of the source, and nu dash is the observed frequency by the observer. Okay. So now let's look at the proof. Okay. So I have drawn a diagram. So just follow my lead. Okay. So O is the position of the observer when it received the first compression. Let us say O is continuously receiving the compressions, and we are observing what is happening at O. So as soon as the observer received first compression, when we started our stopwatch. So t equal to 0 is the time when observer received its first compression. Okay, O is that position of the observer, and S is the position of the source when it emitted that compression pulse which was observed by O. So obviously if O is observing the compression pulse at t equal to 0, that means what? The source must have emitted that compression pulse sometime earlier. Okay, and then when O observes the second compression pulse, O must have moved some distance. Let us say it observes the second compression pulse after a time period of t prime. So then the interval between the two compression pulses will become t prime and observed frequency will become 1 by t prime. We'll see that. So second pulse it is receiving after a time t prime. So meanwhile this must have moved a distance v naught or v observer into t prime. So O prime is the position where it has received the second pulse, and S prime is the position of the source when it emitted the second pulse. Okay, and let's say this distance is L1 S to O and this distance is L2. So I hope the geometry of this diagram is clear, and then we'll use this diagram and we'll see how the maths works out. Okay, so I hope all the variables are clear. So O is the position of observer when it received the first pulse, S is the position of source when it emitted the first pulse, O prime is the position of observer when it received the second pulse, and S prime is the position of source when it emitted the second compression pulse. Okay, and let's say T is the time interval between the emission of compressions, which is same as the related to the reciprocal of source frequency, and T prime is the interval between the receiving of the compressions. Okay, so if it received O received one compression at t equal to 0, that means what was the clock time at the time of emission? So see, so our pulse covered a distance of L1 with a speed c, so this time interval must be L1 by c. So here the clock time is 0, so this must be negative L1 by c. So that's what I have written. C, clock time at the emission of first pulse must be minus L1 by c. Now after how much time does the A emit the second pulse? So since the time period between the two pulses is capital T, which is the reciprocal of the source frequency, so that means T2 is the time when it emitted the second compression, that must be minus L1 by C plus capital T. Okay, capital T is the time period between the two emissions. Okay, so this is the clock time for the emission of second compression pulse. Okay, now when does the B receive second compression? What clock time? See, this is the time when it was emitted, and then this pulse has to cover a distance of L2, and it is covering that distance L2 with the speed c. So how much time delay will be there? So it will receive after a time of L2 divided by c. So here the clock time we calculated, and then we need to shift this clock time by L2 by c. So what is the clock time when B receives the second compression pulse? That is, this is minus L1 by c plus t, this is the time of emission, and plus time of travel, that is L2 by c. So this is the time at which B receives the second compression pulse. Okay, so this you can simplify, and this is also t prime. Okay, because I said that the time delay between the two pulses is t prime, so this must also be equal to t prime because this was received at t equal to 0 and this is received at t3, and t3 must be same as t prime because this is the delay between the receiving of two pulses, right? So I can say that now t3 and t prime are same. Okay, so I can just simplify this, so you make L2 minus L1 together, so L2 minus L1 by c and plus t, that is the time lag between the receiving of pulses. Okay, now I need to see what I can do with L2 minus L1 by c. So I'll need some standard geometry techniques, so we'll see how we can calculate that. So now what is L1? See, I have intersection of these two lines I have marked as q. So L1 is SQ plus QO, right? L1 is SQ plus QO. Okay, and L2 is what? S prime Q plus QO prime. Okay, so I want to calculate L2 minus L1, so I subtract the equations. I subtract the equation 5 from equation 6. So what do I get? So I'll get S prime Q minus SQ, which can also be written as minus of SQ minus SQ prime. Just took a minus sign because SQ is larger and I don't want to write a negative of negative, so just I wrote a negative here. Okay, so S prime Q minus SQ same as minus of SQ minus S prime Q, and plus QO prime minus QO. So that's it. Okay, so QO prime and minus QO. And I'm sure now all of you know the compass technique. So you place your compass over here and put an arc over here. So if you put an arc over there, then these two lengths become equal and this is the extra length, right? So that means what? QO prime minus QO, that will be simply what? So see, now follow me very carefully. Okay, let me enlarge this. So this angle is phi and this has traveled a very small distance, so this angle is also almost phi, because this distance is going to be very small if the frequency is sufficiently large. So if this angle is phi, this angle is also almost phi, and then this distance becomes what? This vertical distance is v naught t prime, so this much distance must be v naught t prime into cos phi, right? So that is v naught t prime into cos phi. Okay, so that is QO prime minus QO, that is v naught t prime cos phi. Now similarly, let us estimate this distance SQ minus S prime Q. So again I put a compass at Q and put a pencil over here and take an arc like this. Okay, so this and this become equal, then this is the extra length. Okay, so extra length will be simply VST into cos theta. Okay, I hope you got this. So this is VST into cos theta and this is v naught t prime into cos phi. Okay, so this is your L2 minus L1, that is this is equation number 8. Now I can put L2 minus L1 in equation number 4 here. Okay, and if I put it in equation 4, let us see. So using 8 and 4, what do I get? So 1 by c, this 1 by c comes as it is, and then L2 minus L1 we have written v naught t prime cos phi and minus VST cos theta, and this plus t comes as it is. Okay, this is equation number 9, and now I can just rearrange this to have t prime terms on one side and t terms on the other side. So if I do that, t prime into c minus v naught cos phi, see this c will go here, so this becomes ct prime, and then v naught t prime cos phi. If you take t prime common, this will become a minus on the other side, so this becomes t prime into c minus v naught cos phi, right? And on the right hand side you will have so you have t into c minus vs cos theta, right? So because you'll or otherwise think of multiplying whole equation by c and then rearranging. So if you multiply this by c, this becomes ct, and then we have minus vst cos theta here, so t comes common and c minus vs cos theta. Okay, so this is, and now you can just take t upon t prime, and t upon t prime must be equal to nu prime by nu. Why? Because frequency is nothing but reciprocal of the time periods, right? So 1 by t prime becomes nu prime and 1 by nu becomes t. Okay, so nu prime upon nu simply becomes, by rearranging this, c minus v naught cos phi upon c minus Vs cos theta, and this is what we wanted to prove. So just rearrange this and you can say nu prime is nu into c minus v naught cos phi, that's c minus Vs cos theta, and see this is what we wanted to prove, and that's what we have proved. And as a side point, I can also talk about what will be the wavelength over here. So how do we define the wavelength? Wavelength is nothing but spacing between the two wavefronts, right? So when you are seeing here, you see here the spacing is something else. In this direction the spacing between the wavefronts is something else. In this direction the spacing is something else, okay? So we can talk about wavelengths in different direction. And you see how exactly we have got this diagram. See, source was somewhere and it emitted a compression pulse which spread out in a circle. By the time it spread out in a circle, the source was already ahead by some distance, and this is the new position, and this will become the center of the circle for a new wavefront, right? So first circle has spread out, and then the second circle is spreading out from here, and then third circle is spreading out. The source is moving forward, and that's why you are getting this type of a pattern, right? And that's why in different directions you are getting different wavelengths. So wavelength is nothing but separation between the two wavefronts. You see here the distance between the wavefronts is larger, whereas here in this direction it has become smaller. And okay, so wavefront will be having some directional dependence, and the wavefronts have got nothing to do with the observer velocity, right? So wavelength has got nothing to do with the observer velocity. Please keep in mind, many times in Doppler effect questions it is asked that so much is the velocity of the observer, then wavelength will be what? So wavelength has got nothing to do with the observer velocity, because it is defined as the separation between two wavefronts in the medium. So within the medium you have to see how far apart the two wavefronts are located. So I might as well put observer velocity to 0 and then use that for finding the separation between the two wavefronts over there, okay? So that's what I've written. Note that we can also find the apparent wavelength of sound at the position of the observer. Let's not call it apparent because it's actually actual separation between the wavefronts. So this is also the observed wavelength, and this is also the actual wavelength, because that's the separation between the two wavefronts in the medium, okay, at the position of the observer. So if the observer were stationary, the time between two successive compressions as per equation 11, see in this equation if I put observer to be stationary, so then t prime will be simply you can just rearrange this equation. So t prime will be t into c minus Vs cos theta whole thing divided by c only. This will go to 0 if you take the observer as stationary, okay? So that's what I've written. So t prime becomes, just rearranging equation 12 and putting v observer 0. So this is your t prime, right? Now the sound appears to be coming along the line joining the source to the observer. If observer is sufficiently far away, we can ignore the nearby effects. So then the sound will be appearing to move along the line joining the source and the observer if we are sufficiently far away, okay? Okay, and the distance between the two successive compression will be what now? So the sound is coming with a speed c, and two wavefronts, they are colliding with the ear of the observer with a time difference of t prime. That means how much distance have the wavefronts traveled? That should be equal to c times t prime, and t prime is this, so I can just put c into this term, and this I can simplify. And then what is ct? Suppose the source were stationary, then what will be the distance between two successive wavefronts? So if source is stationary, suppose one wavefront it has gone some distance t1, then the next wavefront is emitted after time t1 plus capital T, and that has traveled a distance capital T. So this distance must be c into capital T, right? So c into capital T can be thought of as the wavelength if the source were stationary, and lambda prime is when the source is moving, okay? So let me write ct as simply lambda naught, okay? So lambda naught I am defining as the wavelength if the source were stationary. So this becomes simply lambda naught into 1 minus Vs cos theta by Vs by c cos theta, right? And you can feel it also. See, when theta is acute, so wavelength must be reducing according to this formula, right? So if theta is acute, or otherwise let's say when theta is 0, then it is 1 minus Vs by c. If theta is acute, then something is reducing, right? So wavelength is smaller than the usual. And if theta is obtuse, then wavelength is larger than the usual. And if for theta equal to 90, wavelength is same as the actual. So what does this represent graphically if you want to see? See, here in this direction you can see, here the theta is acute, okay? Making acute angle with the source velocity. So here you see the wavelength is smaller, right? You see intersection points are near to each other, right? and in this direction there is some 90 degree, there is some distance between these. And when you talk about the obtuse angle, see here the wavelength is largest, just opposite to the velocity of the source, and in this direction also wavelength is larger than the case of the forward direction, right? So that makes physical sense also. So this is your formula for variation of wavelength with the angle. Okay, so that was my analysis of oblique Doppler effect, or rather with the proper English I should say it is analysis of Doppler effect with oblique approach between the source and observer. And I hope you enjoyed this proof, and if you did like this proof, please do give it a thumbs up, and please do share it with your friends through WhatsApp groups or Telegram groups or whatever academic media you might be using for networking with your fellow students who are preparing for JEE or Olympiads, or maybe Telegrams, the Discord servers. And most importantly, if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel, and more awesome stuff will be coming. And thanks a lot for watching this video. Please do keep coming back, and I want to see you in the next video. Thanks a lot, and God bless you.